Closing arguments to begin anytime now in the hit-and-run homicide trial against Ann Phillips. She's charged with second-degree reckless homicide, resulting in the 2019 death of her husband, Mark Phillips. So let's go back into court now. We've been watching, oh yeah, by the way, the defendant has taken the stand, and we've been watching her direct testimony and cross. So a little more cross-examination now of the defendant, Ann Phillips.
I don't believe so.
And the arming, disarming, or viewing of security cameras?
No.
Do you recall speaking with Investigator Leinfelder about the security cameras as they were armed or disarmed on February 22nd, 2019?
Do I recall talking to him? I don't know if I recall, but I mean, I can go back to the notes.
Okay. Can you please turn your attention on the exhibit that's been handed to you to line 114?
Okay.
I'm starting with Investigator Leinfelder, and so let me do some more checking. Is it your statement, I just hope the cameras were on? I mean, I don't know if they were or not. I have no idea. Is that an accurate reflection of that, or?
You said 114?
Yeah,
It's
I'm
not
confused.
one. Yeah.
What page?
So, Judge, I'm using the line number on the right-hand side.
Okay, explain it to the witness. I don't have it, so I don't know what you're referring to.
But exactly.
Where are you? 1014.
Yes. I think I might have figured out the problem. Ms. Phillips, can you hold up that exhibit, please?
Hold it up?
Yes. So I'm looking at the lines on the left-hand side.
Mm-hmm.
1014. 1014.
Oh.
Sorry.
Hold on. Where Fritz says, and so let me do some more checking?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the 1015, Lori Phillips, I just hope the cameras were on. I mean, I don't know if they were or not. I have no idea.
Correct.
And then at 1018, do you say, I'm assuming they were if I had to turn the cameras off to come home?
Correct.
So you had armed the cameras at 11:08 p.m., is that correct?
If that's what the time was, yes. And obviously when I did all this, I wasn't thinking clearly, so.
So you weren't thinking clearly?
Correct.
So when you were asked that question, you just didn't remember?
No, I just assumed that if I had to turn them off, that they were on.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
So you don't recall turning them on at 11:08 the night before, or you didn't recall them when you spoke to Investigator Leinfelder?
Correct. When I talked to Investigator Leinfelder, I didn't remember that part. Correct.
Okay. And you didn't remember checking the live feeds?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. To me, it made sense when I talked to him that if I had to disable the cameras to go home, that they were on. That's what I'm saying.
So I guess, is it your hope then when you made that statement that the cameras were on during the incident with the driveway? Is that?
I was hoping they were on, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Because when you spoke with Investigator Leinfelder, you didn't remember that you yourself had armed them at 11:08.
That is correct.
Had you calmed down by that point? And by calm down, I'm referring to, I'll ask that in a different way. We saw you were emotional when the arrival on scene. We saw you were emotional at the house.
Correct.
And that was understandable because, as you testified, you just discovered your husband's.
Correct.
Did you, I guess, have an opportunity? What was your emotional state during the interview with Investigator Leinfelder?
I mean, obviously I was still shook up, but I was trying to give him what he needed so I could go back home and be with my family.
Okay. Is it safe to say that you were at least more calm when you met with Investigator Leinfelder?
At the home and police department, yes. Like I said, I wanted to give him as much information as I could so I could go.
And you had already spoken to friends and family at that point?
Yes, I had people at the home.
And your friend Kimmy is the one who drove you?
Yes, she did.
Touching up on the end of your testimony, your direct examination, sorry. We saw pictures of the bruises again, and you remember that?
Yes.
The picture of the one on your leg, didn't you indicate yesterday that that was from you slipping out of the truck or hitting that foot rail or something?
I said that could be the possibility from that one, yes.
Okay, so you didn't specifically say that that was not Mr. Phillips?
I said it could have been from the step rail.
Through different things we've kind of heard about throughout your direct examination, starting at Sloopy's, that was the first place that everyone had went to. Is that accurate?
Correct.
And you had went to Sloopy's with Hannah. Hannah and Adam Stevens were there. Hannah and Adam Stevens were at Sloopy's.
They met us there, correct.
Okay, and that was early.
That was early.
And is that when everyone had started drinking?
Yes.
And did that include yourself?
Yes.
But everything at Sloopy's was okay?
Everything at Sloopy's was great.
And you went to the dive bar at about what time?
I want to say the drawing was at like 7 maybe, so we would have gotten there probably right before that.
And at what point in the dive bar did things, I guess, start to escalate with Mr. Phillips?
I mean, I don't know time-wise, but it would have been when we met up with Scott Cundy.
Okay. So you don't remember the exact time?
No.
Do you recall when the first incident of physical violence was with Mr. Phillips? About when?
Time?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
When we left the bar.
Okay. The dive bar?
But the first time we left the dive bar, yes.
Okay. So the first time you left the dive bar, that is the first incident of physical violence with Mr. Phillips?
Correct.
And not to make you just retestify from yesterday, but what was the first time he put hands on you that night? The one you're talking about right now at the dive bar?
When he brought me back to the dive bar.
So you're at the dive bar at this point, or you've left the dive bar?
The first time Mark put hands on me is when he brought me back to the dive bar.
Okay. And that was in the truck or outside the truck?
In the truck.
Okay. And it was parked? The truck was parked?
Yes.
And at this particular time, can you remind me this particular incident, what he had done?
That's when he jumped over on top of me and was strangling me and yelling at me and on top of me.
So you're in the passenger seat?
I'm in the passenger seat. He jumped over from the driver's side.
From the driver's seat?
Correct.
Okay. And I want to clarify kind of, when you said strangled, I can't do it as well as Mr. Zacher, so correct me, but I guess it was like a forearm hold or it was a choke hold, or I didn't understand that. Could you please describe it for me?
He was using his forearm.
So you use his right forearm or his left forearm? Don't know?
I have no idea.
Was Mr. Phillips right or left-handed?
He was right-handed.
Okay. So he uses his forearm, and that goes up against your neck area, is that?
Correct.
Okay. And then he, applies pressure?
Yes.
Okay. And you're being pushed into the door?
No, in between the seats. Like, he's actually pushing me towards his side, his seat. It was in between the seats, not towards the door.
So, okay, so I think if I understand correctly, so he has actually gotten out of the driver's seat and is on top of you at this point.
Correct.
Okay, so he's on top of you, pushing backwards towards in between the seats, towards his side.
Correct.
Okay. And then after that, you exit the car or the truck, and then that's when you go back into the dive bar, or is that?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, some of that sounded a little bit like a who's on first routine. We went to the dive bar. Well, what's the name of it? The dive bar. Yeah, what's the name of the dive bar you went to? The dive bar. So, truth in advertising. So, interesting cross-examination technique. I will tell you a couple of points they did hit on. It was important was the cameras being on and off, and that I think is very important. And also the whole getting into the history of this alleged domestic abuse. I'm not sure that's the way to go on this cross-exam. Luckily, I have some folks to help me ferret this out here. Catherine Lizardo still here, trial attorney in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And joining us today, Lara Uretzi, and she is a criminal defense attorney in Southern California. Lara, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while.
Good to see you, too.
I'm going to abandon Catherine for just a moment and ask you your thoughts on this case, this woman's, it's a hit and run case, but we're getting into all this backstory about domestic abuse, and is it helping the defense? What do you think?
I mean, at this point, I thought what we were watching was the cross-examination, and please correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it didn't seem like a cross-examination. It almost seemed like direct examination. Usually when you're on cross, you've got your own story in mind. You basically feed it to the witness. And she was doing very well. I thought that she came across very believable, like she had nothing to hide. And it was interesting that they were going into the domestic violence end of it. Maybe the prosecution is trying to take that to the next point, which is maybe they're going to argue that, she almost intentionally did this, like he'd been so abusive towards her that she's reacting to him. Again, I'm not really sure what's in the minds of the prosecutors here, but this is not the typical way we would cross-examine. I mean, you would do a cross. So it's going to be interesting to see what else is going to come out and where this is going to go. But to me, when I was looking at her, she came across very well and very credible and believable.
Yeah, and she could have been even more, kind of a pain to this guy than she was. And, if we were doing a trial advocacy class, that might be here's the before. This is really not the way you want to do this. And then you go to Catherine Lizardo and you say, hey, how do we, surgically, implement a cross-examination to get the most out of this witness? How would you do that, Catherine?
Well, definitely stick with just not an open-ended questions, but just try to pin her in asking about the particular event when she allegedly committed the hit and run, because that's what this case is all about. Did she or did she not know that she hit her husband when she tried to drive off? That's where we're going. And also with the camera, you mentioned that the prosecution actually scored points in trying to point out, because throughout the night she was turning on and off the camera, trying to figure out what is the reason for all of that. Was that because you're trying to hide what you have done, that you've hit your husband or you were about to hit or commit a crime? But we see here that the prosecution ended up asking her about the night at the bar when Mark Phillips actually was so violent that he was on the driver's seat and tried to go on the passenger side where she was sitting, and the prosecution was able to make the witness, the defendant, show how violent he was by raising her arm and saying, this is how he was choking me. That is a very vivid picture for the jury, unfortunately for the prosecution.
Man, nice to reinforce that for the prosecution, for the defense. I just don't understand this. So, Larry, you have this backstory now that suggests either Ms. Phillips was trying to get the hell away from this guy because of this history, or maybe now she's intentionally going after the guy because of his history.
Right. I mean, I'm assuming that's what they're trying to take that this is the motivation. She hit him and she wouldn't help him and take care of him because he just committed domestic violence and he tried to strangle her. But at the same time, like you said, it also explains why this woman is trying to get away. And it doesn't necessarily mean that she did know that she hit him or not. So, I mean, again, it's a testy area. It's a risky area to be in. And I hope for the prosecution's sake, they've got good reason and they know where they're going with this.
Yeah, it's, this is not a murder case per se. It's a hit and run reckless homicide. And I assume that the prosecution would have thrown in that little, intentional homicide if they thought they had the goods. I don't know. Very interesting. So we're going to take a break here. By the way, we have been waiting for the closing arguments in this case, wrapping up the defendant's testimony as we wait. Now they're in the midst of some jury instructions, so we're going to get back into that end to the Phillips case when we take a quick break and come back. Stay where you are.